So race ramps are pretty cool. They help us kind of get the car elevated up to a certain level so that we can comfortably work on it just on this stool. I'm gonna be doing a bunch of carbon fiber, protecting the carbon fiber on this with some PPF. So I wanna get it lifted up so I don't have to lean too far forward or lay on the ground too much. So this is gonna help get the front end kind of elevated so I can work on that front lip. So there's a few things. These do have a load capacity. I wanna say they're like 1,500 pounds each. It might be 2,000 pounds each. Whatever, you can look up the specs. Basically, what I'm getting at is if you get a big diesel truck and those things weigh like 8,000 pounds and a lot of the weight is gonna be over the front end, you can run into issues where you've maxed the load capacity on these and you'll tell when you pull it on or pull it off that they're struggling. They're not gonna like blow up or break or anything like that, but they start to kind of get a little bit more like tweaked, and that's not good. It's not what you want. So what we're gonna do is, this is obviously not above our load capacity, but there are a few things to look at, especially on a lowered car. So this angle that we have is like the most common angle. You can get them like when we have for our lift, we kind of much less of an aggressive angle. I think you can get ones that are a little bit more aggressive. These are like the #1 selling ones. So one thing that we want to look at is, especially on a lowered car like this, you get like those Z06s with the Z07 package, and they don't have a front axle lift, is when you're actually putting these in front of the tire, because you want it to touch the tire before you go up, you can nick the lip of the car on the actual race ramp. And these are very textured. So what'll happen is, if you don't catch it on the way up, you'll catch it on the way down when we've got PPF on this thing, and you'll tear the PPF or rip the PPF, let alone risking scratching somebody's, this lip was probably close to, $1,500. Risking damaging that gel coat that's on there. So we're gonna be visually looking at it as we're putting it on in front of the wheels, and once we know that we have good clearance, then we can get this thing pulled up and the wheels will end up sitting right here and kind of elevate the front end really nice for us. So I'm gonna line these up. So there's a few things I'm looking at. So I'm gonna slide this forward. I'm looking at where it's gonna touch the lip and seeing how close it's getting. You see, that's pretty close. That's really close. You see? It's like about a touch. I know that now that I'm touching the tire, that it's gonna end up being okay. But I might wanna just come out just a little bit more than I usually would. So like right there. So you want the tire to be, centered on the race ramp. Sometimes with wider ones, it's really not the case, so you want to kind of lean more towards maybe on the outside of the tire. So you can come over here, I'll show you what I'm looking at. The next step, so it is touching the wheel, or touching the tire. The next thing I'm going to look at, if you come on this side of me, is I'm looking at this line, but I'm not looking at it touching the front of the tire. That's important, but I'm looking at it at this angle. If you come, I'll actually get your camera a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. More towards here, like that. But I want to see the rear tire. It's like boom, right there. That's nice. So, okay, you can kind of back away now. But that's what I'm looking at, because I need to stand right there. But that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at that line from the rear tire, and I want it to drive straight onto this if I even had the rear tire going up here. So, it's obviously not lined up. So I'm looking at that whole line all the way to the rear tire, and that'll kind of give me a good idea of how level this is. That's good. So I'm gonna do that same thing on this side. It's gonna help you, especially if you're doing this by yourself, because there's some days that you do have to pull these up by yourself. Let's just lean back. Looks pretty good. Just kind of verify this side here. Cool. And so now we have good clearance, it's touching, we can get the car up here. Keep in mind too, we're pretty close to this wall right here, but that's because we have this Land Cruiser up here. We're gonna finish up the tint and it's gotta get kind of pulled out. The distance between here and the face of that, so that's, I don't even have a tape measure even close by, otherwise I would measure that. It looks to be like 3, maybe 4, probably 4.5 feet, 4 feet. That's how much forward the front of here is gonna end up being over here. So if I look at here and I say, okay, that's where my lip's gonna be, can I get my stool around that if it was right here? I'd probably have to move those tables, which is not a problem. I'd rather have the clearance so that he can get pulled out nice and fine than not. So just one kind of extra thing to keep in mind when you're pulling it up with cars in the shop. Okay, key is in there. So you always want to have somebody with you if you can, just to be on the safe side. If not, you can do this on your own. Be mindful of, once you do this a few times, you'll know kind of how far forward you have to go. You really, unless you have a truck that has super tall wheels and tires, or super tall tires, you're not gonna like go over the other side on these race ramps. They'll grab and they'll slide forward. But your idea is not to do that. So like once you kind of get to, you'll feel it, you'll keep going up, and then you'll start to feel it like kind of have that little bit of a drop. That's when you want to like kind of lift off and make sure that it just barely hits there. And you can hear it too sometimes when you just barely go forward like half an inch. So I'll do this by myself here just for the video. Okay. And then I'll just have him verify. His seat's way up. Okay. So keep the wheel nice and straight. And then we're just gonna get this up and stick shift, so. Oh. Let's try that again. Okay. I'd rather just go all the way down than try to mess with it. Oh. Jeez, these low cars, seems a little crazy. There we go. I feel like I'm touching. So what I do is I keep it in neutral and I can feel it kind of settle out. Okay, now I'm gonna put it into gear, lift the e-brake up, turn the car off. All right. Yeah, these low cars, you kind of, it feels like it's going up way further than it actually is. Kind of feels a little crazy. But yeah, you can see we just barely tapped here. Then I put it into neutral, kind of settled it out just a bit. And this is good. This is exactly where you want it to be. So let's just look at the other side. Yeah, I mean, you can come forward just a little tiny bit. This car doesn't weigh a ton. You do have to worry kind of with some of these cars that have big wheels and tires and a lot of weight, like I was saying, kind of those diesel trucks or like 1500s or 2500s with a lot of weight over the front. You don't want to be too far back because you'll flatten out that transition. It'll be harder for you to kind of feel when it's up on the race ramps. We've pulled up on these race ramps. We've had these race ramps for like 6 years, 7 years. So, and they haven't deformed really at all. And we've had lots of cars on here. So if you want to protect your investment, because I think these are like $500. I mean, they're not cheap. And don't get the Rhino ones or whatever. Those things just slide all over the place and they're a nightmare. You're gonna have a lot better luck and a lot better time kind of just pulling it forward on these types of race ramps.